Hey, good afternoon, friends. Today is Tuesday, August the 6th, 2024, and the time now is 5:17 p.m. So, I want to make a brief comment about three topics in international relations or in geopolitics. And once again, I want to first thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community and also for watching the Echoing Voice. Now, yes, there are lots of things happening in the international community, in international relations all over the world. However, just because of time on my part and other reason, I am going to focus on just three major topics, just basically briefly talk about them. So one is basically the prisoner swap between the United States and Russia, and also the situation in Venezuela regarding the election, where the last time I checked, the election authority in Venezuela basically stated or declared that President Maduro had won the election, and the opposition, led by Edmundo Gonzalez, has been contesting the result and has also claimed that he had won the election. Now, the third topic pertains to the situation in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, pertaining to the assassination of Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, Iran, on the day of the inauguration of the new president of Iran, which happens about last Wednesday. So, so far the situation in the Middle East is tense, and the situation in the United States and around the world, okay, depending on which situation you're talking about and which region you're talking about, it basically continues. For example, in Ukraine, the situation has been tense forever now. Russia continues to gradually make progress, and the Ukrainians continue to fight back. Now, in terms of the first topic of discussion, Russia and the United States, and also participated where Germany, the United Kingdom, and other countries, and the United States and Russia basically engage in prisoner swap, where it is said that about 16 to about 24 prisoners were swapped, where the Russians got one prisoner who was said to have been, or is said to have been, a political assassin who was being held in Germany, and the United States basically got out of Russia a couple of Americans, okay? There were journalists, and one of the prisoners, or those who were held hostage in Russia, was an ex-US Marine. And this also, it is interesting that it begs the question, why engage in what is happening right now in the world, whether we are talking about in Ukraine or in other parts of the world? I know we are told that some of the things that politicians do is just a game, but then the average people get caught up in the nonsense and take it seriously. Yes, the Russians and the United States are engaging in war right now. And yes, I'm talking about the situation in Ukraine, where the United States and the West are fighting Russia using Ukrainian bodies. And people are dying on both the Russian side and on the Ukrainian side. But it is very interesting how, even though their war is much more overt, as of now, it is very much visible and obvious that both countries are engaging in diplomatic affairs. Of course, the U.S. side, the U.S. government is saying that even though they engage in the swap of the prisoners in diplomatic affairs in that regards, the situation between the United States and Russia in terms of what is happening in Ukraine remains. It is still the same. But now, this is interesting in how it is playing in the United States, because Donald Trump, who is now running for re-election and was the former president of the United States about 4 years ago when he was defeated by Joe Biden. It's basically one saying that he was engaged in the prisoner swap in the discussion, and also he had been taking swap at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who also took swap at him. But one thing that is very interesting that many are talking about is the fact that one or two of those prisoners actually were arrested in Russia during the Trump's presidency in 2018. And how come Donald Trump did not get those prisoners out? So recently, Donald Trump has been saying that if he is reelected, that he was going to make a deal with Vladimir Putin, basically get American prisoners out of Russia. But then the question is, why didn't you do that when you was in power, when you was the president of the United States, at least from 2016 to 2020? So this is very interesting, and it is one of the examples of what politicians do. Now, there are many who will dare argue that Donald Trump is not the traditional politician. It may be the case. However, Donald Trump, for the past 8 years now, had been initiated. Okay, he is officially a politician. He ran for office. He was president for 4 years, and for the past 4 years, he's been talking smack. He's been engaging in political activities. So he is a politician. Now, in terms of Venezuela, the situation continues. Yes, the United States and other countries, okay, especially those countries in the region, in South America and also in the Latin American world, such as Brazil, Argentina, Panama, Colombia, and so on. Many of them had been calling for the past week now that the election authority in Venezuela and the Maduro government release the election tally. Now, I haven't heard any new information. I'm going to continue to check to see what's happening. But the situation in Venezuela, even though, yes, it is a Venezuelan election and it has to do with the people in Venezuela, it is a geopolitical matter, especially given the proximity of Venezuela to those countries and also the regional and geographic strategy of Venezuela, or the strategic location of Venezuela, in addition to natural resources such as oil. Okay? It is said that Venezuela has one of the largest oil reserves in the world, or the number 2 oil reserves in the world, next to Saudi Arabia or something like that. So Venezuela is very important, especially given what is happening in the world today, with Europe struggling with its energy issue due to the war in Ukraine, and the fact that the Nord Stream pipeline was destroyed. So countries such as Germany, I'm sure, does have interest in Maduro being removed, okay, from office, in Maduro being defeated in this election. But Maduro continued to fight back, and the opposition continued to fight back. So I'm not sure how this is going to end, but I hope, and I'm sure many in the international community and many of us on social media who are commenting on what is happening in the country are hoping that they peacefully come to a resolution of the situation in Venezuela. Now, for the third topic of discussion, which pertains to the assassination of Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh. It is a very interesting but a provocative event. Now, the Iranians and Palestinians are basically saying that Israel, okay, is responsible, or at least as of now, it is being accepted that Israel was responsible. Even some Western officials and even American officials have said that Israel is responsible. And again, Israel hasn't claim responsibility for it. However, if we are to say, okay, or agree that Israel was responsible, then the question is, why do this? Why assassinate him in Iran? Especially given what happened with the assassination in Damascus, Syria, the attack on Iran's embassy complex, and the retaliation of both Iran and Israel following the attack on Iran's embassy complex in Damascus, Syria. That situation, okay, that flame, that fire was basically put off. Why doing this again? Now, I don't know who is advising the Israeli officials, but the advisors, man, they are doing a terrible job, because it feels as if Israel is making decisions without thinking of the future consequences of these decisions. Yes, if you want to assassinate Haniyeh, do it. But when you do it in Iran, especially given what has occurred in the past between Iran and Israel in the past few weeks, such assassination, such manner of assassination is a terrible decision. And also given the fact that the assassination took place in the capital city on the day when Iran inaugurated its new president. So it seems as if, based on what is happening in the Middle East and some of the decision of Israel, it is very easy to, I won't say conclude, let me just say to assume that Israel doesn't want the tension between it and Iran to end, to cease. Because such manner of assassination, basically like saying, hey, let's do this, let's fight, let's continue to fight, or whatsoever. Now, I'm not trying to be controversial here, but if you want to assassinate Haniyeh, assassinate him. He's your enemy. But when you are assassinating him in Iran, okay, what you are doing, as much as it may work for voters in Israel and many of Israel's allies around the world, yes, it is insulting, and it is basically saying, Iran, your security apparatus is not as sophisticated as you think. You are terrible. However, what that can also do is putting fear into the Iranian, or basically provoking them into doubling down on their resentment for Israel, or who knows, going hard. For example, if they are looking at what is happening as provocation and as a potential that there are problems with their security system, perhaps they could continue to make more investment and to become much more radical in countering what Israel is doing. What's happened in terms of the assassination was, one, insulting, two, provocative, and also it could make the new president, if he has, okay, or prior to the assassination, if he had any kind of sentiment, okay, or belief in terms of having a good diplomatic rebuild with Israel, okay, or trying to mend the tension with Israel, such manner of assassination could provoke him and the Iranian government, especially the hardliners in Iran, to basically pull back. It could make the leader of Iran, the supreme leader of Iran, to basically double down on his belief or on his perception or his will to want to cause harm or danger to Israel. Now, in terms of the situation itself, one can conclude to an extent it is hostile to even the United States, Israel's most prominent ally. The United States is currently caught in election season. You have an old president going out or getting ready to go out, and a new president potentially coming in. Let's assume Kamala Harris win the election. Or let's also assume that Donald Trump winning the election. To an extent, one can argue that what this assassination was an attempt to manipulate the election in America. And we also saw a picture of Netanyahu taking picture with Donald Trump in the United States. Such thing or sentiment can basically manipulate people to vote or to not vote in the American election. It can have negative impact, I believe. And it can happen both ways. For those who want to vote for or against Donald Trump, or those who want to vote for or against Kamala Harris. And the manner in which people like Netanyahu act, in the long term, I don't think it works for Israel, and it puts the United States in a very terrible situation. Also, it begs the question, what is the policy? What is the outcome? Okay? What does Israel or the United States want to accomplish? The United States is focusing on Russia. The United States is getting ready to go after China. Israel seems to be doing its own thing in the Middle East, which the United States is trying to manage, okay, so that it doesn't get out of control. And if you was to bring another party into this, Ukraine, I do feel as if there are those in Ukraine who probably have some resentment against Israel for what is happening, because to an extent, a greater extent, the situation in the Middle East takes away America's focus or Western focus on Ukraine. It diverts resources and money away from Ukraine to the Middle East. So I'm not sure what you think. Perhaps you can tell me what you think. But the situation between Israel and Iran, maybe what needs to happen is the rest of the world, the international community, needs to get involved again and try to manage this so that it doesn't get out of control. Because some of the decisions that are being made, it's not going to work for the United States. It's not going to work for Israel. It's not going to work for anyone in the Middle East, for Iran as well. In terms of the United States, if it was to get into war against Iran, yes, the United States can win. But Iran is not Afghanistan. And America could get itself caught up in a very serious, dangerous situation which could drain the United States of resources, financially, economically, and in other ways. So that's it, friends. I'm going to end here. Thank you very much for being a member of the Echoing Voice community. And thank you very much for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace.